بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. May Allah bless all of the sisters involved, the participants, the attendees or attendettes, the sisters who organized and orchestrated it, the brothers as well who are involved in support and help. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless each and every one of you. وَنَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى أَنْ يَجْمَعَ لَنَا بَيْنَ الْأَجْرِ وَالْفَائِدَةِ. Indeed, we ask Allah to give us both the tangible benefit, the pieces of information, the facts, along with the spiritual reward, the hasanat, in our scale of good deeds. إِنَّهُ وَلِيُّ ذَلِكَ وَالْقَادِرُ عَلَيْهِ. Ameen. With that being said, the hijab of a Muslim woman is of utmost importance for several reasons. And of course, the hijab of a Muslim woman, it is much more than just a piece of clothing or articles or attire of clothing or dress. But instead, the hijab of the Muslim woman is a symbol. It is something that signifies. It is something that allows her to be distinguished and known and recognized. It is a means of distinction. It is a means of a Muslim woman telling you something and speaking to you, but without words. So the hijab, without a question, is one of the mile markers, one of the milestones. It's one of the landmarks. It's a lighthouse of Islam. And there are many people today who strive very hard, very diligently to erase that and to get rid of that. And they want the hijab to be something other than that. Whether it is just culture, they'll say this is cultural. It has nothing to do with faith. And then there are those who say rather it is a specific culture of Arabs, and has nothing to do with Islamic faith. And that's a long story and discussion in itself with regards to the different types of racism and prejudice that exist between Arabs and non-Arabs. And many people, many nations, the truth is to be said, for one reason or another, they were mistreated by Arabs, or they felt and thought that they were being mistreated by Arabs. They were discriminated against. They suffered prejudice from Arabs, and they felt that Arabs were dominating them and conquering them and colonizing them and enslaving them and taking over what they had. So therefore they had to fight back, and they fought back too hard, too much, in which they started rejecting actual Islamic teachings because it's an Arab thing, or they don't understand the necessary Arabization when it comes to many aspects of Islam. Not all, we didn't say all, but many things. And it lies no doubt, the one who reads the Quran and Sunnah, he is going to be met with a fork in the road option. There are certain times, I said certain, in which you have to Arabicize. That's how it is. There's no choice. It's a spiritual worship. It's an ibadah that the Prophet ﷺ talks about, mandates through the ways of the Arabs. So you have to. And then there are other times in which it's optional. You keep your own culture wherever you come from. That's totally fine. But the shaitan is going to trick people. He's going to deceive people. And he's going to get people to reject anything and everything with the smallest hint or smell of Arabs and Arab and Arabian culture. We don't want it. We can't have it. No. And from that is hijab. And many people, men and women today, they say to cover your hair, to cover your body, to wear long, loose clothing, to wear hijab and abaya is an Arab thing, and we're not Arabs. My family comes from Korea. I come from Ghana or Gambia or Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau. We're not Arabs. I'm Persian. My family is from Afghanistan. We have a long, rich history of Persian literature and Persian poetry. We don't need these stinky, dirty, filthy Arabs that come from the desert. We're Muslim, but we're not Arabs. We don't want anything to do with the Arabs. The shaitan, he uses this. And then there are those, a third group and a third party, who say that the hijab signifies And the hijab, it represents oppression. It represents chauvinism. It represents men dominating women and abusing women, womanizing women. It represents misogyny, and it represents, women being treated like second-class citizens in front of men. And then there's a fourth group of those who say that the hijab and wearing it and covering it, it represents old-fashioned practices. It represents the Stone Age. It's nothing wrong with it. It's okay. It's good. But that was back then. People wore clothes like that. People wore tunics and frocks, and people that covered their heads, and it's not for 2023. People wear different modern clothes, different styles, and Islam, they say, is a religion that is supposed to go with the times and go with the trends, and it's supposed to allow you to fit in with society. So therefore, no to hijab. And then there is a fifth group, unfortunately, those who say that the hijab, it is a symbol and it is a marker of extremism. And some may even go further than that and say terrorism. And that when a person is wearing the hijab, that automatically means that they're a radical. That automatically means that they're extreme, that they're a zealot. That automatically means that they're fanatical, they're fundamentalists, and they believe that everyone else should die in the name of Islam. And, terrorist people wear these things, so therefore we shouldn't. And it represents extremism. Or it represents hatred of other races or other religions. Or some may even say it represents anti-Semitism, and the list goes on. And then we have, if I'm not mistaken, a sixth group when it comes to what the hijab symbolizes. They walk a little away from those other five groups, and they'll say the hijab, it's a part of Islam, but the hijab is only covering the head. That's it. That's what it is. And once a woman wears a scarf on her hair, then she's, khalas. She's Muslim, she's practicing Islam correctly, and it signifies the hijab. And therefore, I can be an Olympic fencer, I can be an Olympic swimmer, I can be an Olympic racer or sprinter, I can wear a business suit, corporate clothing, I can be around men, sitting with makeup, perfume. I walk outside, I get on a train, I work in Manhattan. As long as I have on my hijab, my job is done. My head is covered. The rest of my body is in plain view of all men. I'm sitting, laughing, joking, flirtatious, a normal office gesture. It's no big thing. And for a woman to wear a longer khimar, or for a woman to wear an abaya, or a very long, loose type of thing, that goes back to the previous 5 categories. So be mindful of how tricky the shaitan is. There are those who will accept the head covering, but my chest being covered, no. My legs, my backside being covered, no. The front of my body, my private area being covered, no. I can wear skin-tight pants, skin-tight clothes. Every man can look and see and enjoy. No biggie. My feet being exposed, you see my toes. Men don't like women's feet. Of course not. No man has ever found a woman's feet attractive. I go to the salon and I get a pedicure and I sit still for hours for them to trim my nails and take off the excess skin from my feet and my heels, and I put on this lotion and this cream and I paint my toenails. For what? Men don't look at women's feet. That's not a part of hijab. Let alone my manicure, my fingers, my hands, and the perfume. And then there are those who say, well, maybe that's a little extreme, so I just wear a longer shirt. The shirt covers my butt and the front, of my private area, my abdomen, and everything. I have on skin-tight pants, but you can't see my crotch or my groin. My shirt is covering it. But the rest of my legs you can see, because that's not a part of hijab. And then there are those who may wear the full hijab, long, but very, very, very nice, attractive, beautiful, flowery colors that everybody likes, is pleasing and pleasant to see. Okay? And then there are those who wear makeup. There are those who wear perfume outside of the house. There are levels. What's important is that why are there so many different opinions and feelings and thoughts and ups and downs when it comes to hijab? How something's supposed to be so simple becomes so complicated and so complex. And then we have another group of people, let's say this is group number 7, those who say that hijab, it represents those previously mentioned 5 points exclusive to Muslims. Okay? Muslims being fundamentalists, terrorists, stuck in the past, chauvinists, misogynists, oppressors of women, so on and so forth, blindly following Arabs, wannabe fake Arabs, so on and so forth. But no other faith or no other religion supports or condones that. People who say this, and you don't have to go into a church to know that this is false. You can go on YouTube and you can watch a documentary, not from the 1800s or the 1700s. You can watch something from 50 years ago, 30 years ago in some places, in which you'll find a Russian woman with a scarf on, in which you'll find a nun or sister with a full loose dress on, in which you'll find a person who is a Hindu or Buddhist, and she wears a very long, loose, modest piece of clothing. So, wait a second. I thought that you said that only Muslims did that. I thought that you said only Muslims, so something's off now. And then, of course, among Buddhists, among Hindus, among Christians, among Jews, among people of other faiths, you have those 5 categories of those who say that the old Christian women will wear this, it's outdated. Or the older Christian women will wear this, and that's because they were being oppressed by men as well, and the list goes on. You guys get the point that I'm trying to make. So therefore, how have things become so complicated? And then there are those who may think and those who may say, well, it is only for religious people. And that's an 8th category. That the hijab is a good thing. Yes, it is a part of Islam. It is in the Quran. No doubt about that. But that's for the really religious people. The people who have that strong religious zeal. As far as me, I'm a 9-to-5 Muslim. I'm a very simple type of person. I make my basic 5 prayers and then that's it. I'm not nothing special. So therefore, there's no need for me to wear this type of special hijab. And loose, long, fully covering hijab is only for the really super religious sisters. Okay? And then a 9th group, perhaps, are those who may say that wearing a full hijab that is loose, that is not perfumed, that doesn't have attractive colors or styles, that covers everything with exceptions to the hands and the face, according to some, and covering the hands and the face according to others, clothing that doesn't imitate that of men, and clothing that doesn't imitate that of kuffar, okay, kafirat, kuffar women. They say that's only for a specific group from among the Muslims, and that specific group, they're extreme. They're a new modern day sect. They came from Arabia. They came from this part of the world. They follow this imam. They follow this leader, and they have opposed and they have went against the 4 imams and the consensus of the 4 imams and the 1,000 years of Islamic scholarship, the 1,400 years of Islamic scholarship. Only extreme Muslims who are of this name and of this group and of this sect, they're those who dress like this. And that's also another lie, and that's also another trick of the shaitan. And when you sit down and you read what Imam Abu Hanifa said, and what Imam Malik said, and what Imam Shafi'i said, what Imam Ahmed said. So the question is now, how do we go so far? And how did things become so complicated, so perplexing with regards to a concept that is supposed to be simple and basic? The answer to this question is answered in the following points. Number 1 is ignorance and lack of proper knowledge of the religion. Ignorance and lack of proper knowledge of the religion. But why is there ignorance? There are no Muslim scholars, there are no Muslim imams, there are no classes, there are no books, there are no lectures. The knowledge is too difficult, it's too hard to understand, it's not translated into English. Why? The answer is that most of us and most of the people, they have turned away. They have turned away from reading. They have turned away from studying. They have turned away from listening and from hearing, let alone listening. And the average person doesn't care. They're too busy working, and they're too busy going to school, and they're too busy watching sports, and they're too busy with politics, and they're too busy with this superstar, and this celebrity, and this actor, and this rapper, and this singer, and this movie, and this one, Instagram, TikTok, and the internet. So the average person just doesn't care about learning the basics of his religion, and learning the fundamentals of his religion, and learning how Islam, learning the basics of Islam and practicing it is not an option. It's not something which is additional. It isn't something for special elite Muslims. But every single Muslim must know the basics. As the Prophet ﷺ tells us, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. The hadith states is that seeking knowledge is mandatory upon every single Muslim. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا عَمَّا أُنذِرُوا مُعْرِضُونَ. And those who reject faith, the disbelievers, they turn away from the warnings. They don't want to hear it. Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he lived among his people أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا خَمْسِينَ عَامًا, for 1,000 years, except for 950 years he lived among them. And he called them, he says, I called them, he said, I called them laylan wa naharan, day and night I called them. I warned them. And they didn't want to hear anything I had to say. And they would take their fingers and they would stick their fingers in their ears. They didn't want to hear the warnings. Okay, and that's unfortunate. That many Muslims are very material. They're very secular. And the only thing they care about is their bellies. You know, their homes, where they're going to sleep, what they're going to eat, what they're going to wear, what they're going to drive, and how much money they're going to save. So this is one of the reasons why so many Muslims, men and women alike, have misconceptions, misunderstandings with regards to hijab. What it is and what it is not. What's correct and what's incorrect. And this is why so many of us are so ignorant of the basic conditions of the hijab. What are those conditions? Where do they come from? And why are they important? What is so symbolic about the hijab? What does it mean? Is it only for Arabs or special people? Ignorance. So if you have that ignorance, and if you're turning away, and if you don't take the time to learn the basic fundamentals, then you're going to fall victim to those misconceptions. And obviously, if you fall victim to those misconceptions, on the day of judgment, you won't have no excuse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you, has a warner not come to you? Did you not know? Did you not hear? Did you not answer? Why didn't you answer the call? Another reason behind the misconceptions concerning the hijab and the different levels of incorrectness concerning the hijab after ignorance, after turning away, is greed and lust for the hayat ad-dunya, the worldly life. And a person knows the truth. A person, he knows it's wrong to do the opposite, but the money is too good. It's too much. Or I'm just too pretty and too beautiful to put on a bunch of clothes. You know, you only live once. You only, take as many pictures as you want to, go to the prom, maybe have a boyfriend on the side. It's okay. You can make repentance later. You're only young once. If you got it, flaunt it. You're beautiful. The world needs to see that you're beautiful. So a person, he knows that he or she is wrong, but they fall victim to their lusts because they don't fight themselves. They don't stand against their nafs, and they fall victim to their desires. And this is one of the reasons why we have misconceptions concerning hijab. Many people, they know that what they're saying is wrong. They know it doesn't make sense. They know that the arguments that they're trying to make are totally inconsistent. But the dunya is in front of them. Another reason is fear, unfortunately. And that is, many people are forced and pressured, as one person once said, for those who say that for a woman to wear hijab is oppressive. Alright, and they say that men force women to wear hijab, which is incorrect. It's a law of Quran and Sunnah. But for argument's sake, one person said, well, if a man forces a woman to be uncovered, and this is a standard of beauty, this is a standard of fashion, and you have to go outside half naked to be acceptable, is that not oppression? Is that not wrong? Is that not forcing someone to do something that they originally don't want to do? So oftentimes people, they're afraid and they're scared of being bullied, of being made fun of being ridiculed. Sometimes they're afraid of their own parents, and they'll tell their children, I don't want you dressing like that. I don't want you running into trouble, or I don't want people to think that you're an extremist, or I don't want people to think that you're a terrorist, Or someone may say, you can't find a husband if you dress like that. No one will be able to see how beautiful and how cute you are. You have to show a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. So children, they're scared and they're afraid. Or a grown person, not a teenager, they're scared of people making fun of them in society. Or, I can't get a job like this. No one will hire me wearing these clothes. No one, there's no place I can go and study and learn doing these things. So I know it's wrong, but I have no choice. And obviously fear is a very powerful emotion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed inside the human being for a wisdom. Adrenaline being released into the bloodstream, it can make you or it can break you. It can make you or it can break you. As a wise man once said, that fear breaks many men, and for many others, it allows them to break records. Some people are broken by fear, and others break records because of fear. So when the adrenaline is running and flowing through you, you're scared, you panic, you fold, you curl up, you ball up, you become victim, versus rising to the occasion and overcoming your fears and doing what's need to be done. So a very widespread reason behind bad hijab, poor hijab, no hijab, ignoring the rules of hijab and the conditions of hijab is people being scared of poverty, people being scared of being made fun of, people being scared of their parents, people being afraid of their peers, peer pressure, which is another reason. And obviously we know that we're supposed to have good friends. And most mistakes of youth, I would say the majority of backwards behavior when it comes to teenagers and adolescents is because of peer pressure. People forcing a person to do something that they know is wrong, because no one wants to be made fun of. No one wants to be mocked. No one wants to be ridiculed. No one wants to be the oddball. No one wants to be picked upon. No one wants to be a loser. No one wants to be the person that's not cool, that doesn't dress nice and look nice, and so on and so forth. And all of these things clearly go against the distinct Islamic identity that the Muslim is supposed to have. Strength from within, my own heart, my own soul, my own mind. I don't need the next person to approve of me or to like me or to clap and to celebrate me. I don't need the next person to say, hey, good job, you're cool, you're all right. Because I have something greater than that and bigger than that. So therefore, in brief, hijab, of course, there are rules and there are conditions. And the rules and the conditions of the hijab are taken from Quran and Hadith. That's number one. And most of those rules are common sense. If you just sit down and think about it, it's common sense, okay? Solid common sense. But we know that common sense isn't too common, all right? So having a sound mind will prevent you from many, many mistakes. It makes no sense for a person to think that I can wear these skin-tight clothes, but as long as my head's covered, that's hijab. It doesn't make any sense, right? It's common sense. And there are other misconceptions. If you just sit down and scratch your head a little bit, you say, wait a second. Oh, wait. That can't be. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. All right? And we've made certain examples of that. Okay. So with that being said, there are rules for hijab. There are conditions for the hijab. There's an etiquette of the hijab. Hijab, just because you wear the clothes doesn't mean that you're promised paradise and that you're automatically better than everybody else. It doesn't mean that you have the right to look down upon others and scorn others and spit upon others. La. The more pious you are, the more knowledgeable you are, the more learned you are, the humbler you should be, the nicer you should be, the more pleasant of a person you should be. And it's a very sad, unfortunate reality that many sisters who do wear hijab and who do practice the sunnah and knowledge, they have bad attitudes. They have attitude problems, and they look down upon other women and treat other women incorrectly. And that's very sad. But once again, that is another trick of the shaitan. And that is, a sister says, I don't want to wear hijab because all the sisters who wear hijab, they have bad character. I don't want to wear hijab because I don't want people to think that I'm better than them. I don't want to wear the proper hijab because I don't want the sister to say, oh, you think you're better than us now? Just yesterday, you were wearing skin-tight leggings. You were, wearing a halter top. Now you have on a hijab, you're better than us, right? We're all sinners, right? You're holier than thou, right? So the shaitan, he has many, 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 many wrenches and screwdrivers and hammers and knives in his toolbox. And he's going to use all of them to trick you and to get you not to fulfill your Islamic obligation. End of sentence. Many brothers, if you ask them, why do you shave your face, akhi? Don't you know the Prophet prohibited shaving the face? He said that it's impermissible, it's imitating the Jews, imitating the mushrikeen. Why do you shave your face, right? So there are some people who say, well, if I grow a beard, people are going to think I'm some big shot, and I'm not a big shot. Or people are going to think, they're going to remind me of my past when I used to smoke. I used to smoke weed, and I used to have girlfriends, and I used to drink alcohol, and I used to go to the club, and I wasn't making salah, and they're going to throw it in my face. Or there are those who say, well, if I wear a beard, they're going to think that I'm a terrorist, or they're going to think I'm an extremist, or they're going to think, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The shaitan is playing you. He's making fun of you, and he's getting you to disobey Allah with these weak, feeble excuses. So the hijab is a responsibility between you, yourself, you and Allah. No one can come between you and your duty, your job. And if you fail to do your job, you can't blame no one or nothing. And on the day of judgment, you have to deal with those problems. So therefore, with that being said, inshallah ta'ala, you have to learn about the hijab from its proper sources. You have to give concern and care. You have to give effort. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, the hijab will lead you to many, many other great feats of your deen. And this is sufficiency. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thank you very much for inviting me and for hosting me. May Allah make the program a success and a means of benefit for all. If there are any questions or things that anyone would like to ask about the speech or the lecture or the topic, then inshallah I'll be more than ready to take them now.